Sonchus oleraceus. Nickname for this plant is lion's paw. This is part 1, and in part 2 I'll be sharing a mnemonic or memory technique to help you commit to memory the most distinguishing characteristics of this plant for identifying purposes. Be sure to watch all of part 1 so that part 2 is understandable. This is a weedy plant. It's dandelion-like. It's quite erect. Can grow up to 6 feet tall. Two of the ways that this plant can be distinguished from dandelion is one, there are several flower heads atop the stems. Dandelion, you'll find only one. There are also leaves found from the top to the bottom of this plant, whereas dandelion, the leaves are found only at the bottom in a rosette. No leaves on the stem of the common dandelion. Common characteristic of this plant is its spiny or prickly edges. A hollow stem. The stem also has 5 sides, which is known as a polygon. If you were to cut this stem in half and look down in it, you will see 5 sides, the polygon. That will be the cross section you're looking into. The flowerets or the flower rays are yellow. This plant has a stout taproot. This is referred to as a compound leaf, actually. This top portion can be triangle shaped or have more of a spade shape, followed by smaller leaflets. One of the distinguishing characteristics of this particular Sonchus genus plant are its pointed lobes here at the bottom, which are technically referred to as urticles. They are pointed. There are 2 other Sonchus plants of the Sonchus genus that are shared on this fact sheet of the Sonchus oleraceus fact sheet at survivalplantsmemorycourse.com. The other 2 are Sonchus arvenseus and the Sonchus asper. Those 2 sow thistle plants have round urticles at the base of each leaf. This plant we're studying now, the lion's paw, the urticles again not only pointed, they are not only pointed, but they also extend past the stems. Prickly edges, spade-shaped top portion, smaller leaflets, also referred to as lobes. Now the top portion of these plants tend to have more entire shaped leaves with very shallow or no lobes at all. This leaf here on the left we see bears more of a lance-shaped lanceolate, whereas this leaf here on the right has more of an oblance-shaped. This picture shows us how the top surface of the leaves are dark green while the bottom surface has more of a pale green color. The urticles or base lobes are again pointed. This part of the figure, or this part of the illustration, shows us how the bracts which surround the flowers, when they close, bear somewhat of a cone shape. The florets are strap-like, have like a strap shape, and they are replaced with this fruit here, represented here in this figure, much smaller, but the fruit is crowned with the very recognizable silky white parachute, which is represented here, which allows this fruit to be carried by the wind. Inside of this unopening achene fruit is one seed. Now they all accumulate to form this silky white flower head or seed head, since the flowers have matured. The flowers have no center disc, which is seen in sunflowers. They open in the morning and they close at noon. Again, notice the cone shape. The fruit or achenes are ribbed. Like I said before, they do not open. They're brown. They're also somewhat flat. This plant grows from out of a rosette of leaves. A rosette being a round formation or circular form of leaves. Notice again the spade-shaped top portion, followed by the smaller leaflets below that. spiny edges, pointed lobes at the base of the leaf. This leaf is clasping the stem. This shows us the leaf again clasping the stem with the distinctly pointed lobes at the base. This is a younger leaf, but also bears some of the spines. With so many other leaves being on the plant, there will be no problem identifying this plant along with so many other leaves which will have plenty more spines around the edges. But I show this particular picture because it shows on detail again the spade-shaped top portion of the leaf, followed by the smaller leaflets. Now, in part 2, just as a side note, remember this portion represents the treetop or the crown of the tree. This represents the tree trunk. This leaflet represents one of the cubs. This leaflet represents another cub. And the more leaflets you have, the more cubs would be represented by them. You'll have to watch part 2 to get the full gist of what I was just describing. The leaves can bear a bluish, purplish tint, and the stems, as we see here, can bear a reddish, purplish tint. Pointed lobes, versus the rounded lobes, which we'll see a picture of those later with the other two plants of this genus. Pointed lobes again, bluish purplish tint. Spiny edges. These leaves also have a tendency to curl once they become older. Purplish tint on the stems. This stem, we can more clearly see some of the flat sides. It has, again, 5 sides. Hollow, polygon, 5 sides. On the left are one of the youngest leaves, and we see the leaves progressively getting older as we proceed to the right. They become more deeply lobed and more curled. Some of the younger leaves, which are better for edibility purposes, now this picture shows us the base lobes, or the lobes at the base of the Sonchus arvenseus plant. They are not pointed. Sonchus arvenseus. Still notice the somewhat small spines, like the lion's paw plant that we're studying. These two, the oleraceus and the arvenseus, have somewhat of the same size spines, whereas the asper we'll be seeing on the next set of slides have much larger spines and much larger, more rounded bottom lobes as well. Arvenseus, rounded lobes, much smaller as well. Arvenseus, much smaller, rounder. Again, if you find this plant or the lion's paw, the oleraceus, the leaves, the stems, and the roots are edible. This picture also shows us how this plant, the one we're studying, the lion's paw or oleraceus, and the Sonchus asper, all emit a milky sap when they are cut. Notice the size of these spines compared to these. This is the Sonchus asper. The stems and the leaves are edible, but the roots are not. We can distinguish this plant from the other two by noticing, again, not only the much larger spines, but the lobes at the base of the leaf, or the urticles, are rounded in the shape of a ram's horn. If you look at the side, if you look at this leaf from the side, you will notice this feature. The distinctions of all three, even though they're not poisonous, will be featured on the poisonous lookalikes chart for the lion's paw plant. Set there so that you do not mistakenly eat the roots of this particular plant, but just to be safe, you have identified all the other characteristics, but may still not be sure which of the three you have. Just eat. Just stick to eating either the leaves or the stems, because the leaves and the stems of all three are edible. The asper, again, much larger spines, and the urticles or lobes at the base of the leaf are in the shape of a ram's horn. Ram's horn again. The edible parts of lion's paw are the stems, the leaves, and the roots. To learn how to prepare these parts for eating, visit survivalplantsmemorycourse.com. Click on Sonchus oleraceus. The common name for this plant is Sow Thistle, or you could also click on, which will be on the same line, the lion's paw, which is the nickname. This has been part 1. Be sure to watch part 2, where I will be describing or giving you a memory technique or a mnemonic to help you commit to memory the most distinguishing characteristics of this plant for identifying purposes. Thank you for watching.